Uh-oh, what happened? Keeping my fingers crossed. I think we're here. Anybody hear me? All right. New setup, new Mac Studio. Cool. Just keeping my fingers crossed because of the new Mac OS Ventura operating system, and I got my Mac Studio now. If you have any open on the Nemo giveaway, what the hell is that? Oh, Nemi? I don't know what that is. Check one, two. All right. Here we go. Check. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Crush Live Call-In, starting in on time. No music here because of what happened last week. I might just ditch the music entirely. I used some Jeff Buckley music and the entire stream got flagged. That's the first time that's ever happened. Usually they just demonetize you, which is fine for the live stream. But as always, we do this show every single Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you want to get on the show, you can click on the link in the description. That will get you on the show because we always pre-submit all of our calls, as I realize that I have not taken out the Cyber Monday thing from last week, but now there it is. But I'm on my brand new Mac Studio, so I'm hoping everything is going well. My iMac was pretty much all done with, but it's the new Mac OS that concerns me just a little bit, but everything seems to be going well, and hopefully I'm going to do a little camera upgrade here coming up. Anybody have any ideas about some nice camera that's static from like 6 feet, or from maybe like 5 feet, 3 feet actually? You can shoot me an email, bart@crushlivepoker.com. I was looking at the Sony ZV-1 and the ZV-10, but I'm going to get rid of this backdrop here and get some like aperture, like backdrop unfocused, things like that, hopefully for next week, but we'll get that set up. But anyways, we've got 4 calls here on today. And again, if you do want to get on the show, you can click on the link in the description, pre-submit your hand. I'd like to keep it live in the live chat. Michael G, moderator extraordinaire. By the way, I noticed that I do have a setting on that you must be a subscriber to live chat. So if you're not a subscriber to the channel, you need to subscribe to live chat. So here we go. And we were going to start here with our first caller. And this is a guy that I have known for a long, long time. This is Tony. Hello, Tony. You are up first, sir.
Hi, Bart. How are you?
Doing well, Tony. Doing well. The last time I saw Tony was at the Encore. What was that, a few weeks ago or something?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Tony and I had dinner, and I decided to splurge at the steakhouse there and order some certified Japanese Wagyu beef where there's only, I don't know, a couple dozen places in the country. and the only place in New England was the Encore that has it. And man, Tony, I got to tell you, I was kind of disappointed. You had a bite too, right?
I did. It's the first time I've ever felt like I've had a bite of food on a fork that looked like $30. Because it was like every slice of that was was special. But yeah, I had a bite of it, and I think at the time we both were kind of thinking, well, it's good.
I think where I went wrong was I asked the waiter what kind of cut that he recommended. I was expecting him to say, ribeye, and he said tenderloin. And I got
Yeah.
like an extra couple ounces. It was like 400 or 500 bucks or something crazy. And I've splurged like that on dinners before, but I've never been disappointed. But I was disappointed by that one. I won't do that one again, or I'll definitely get a different cut. But it's nice in there at the Encore. Tony and I played a little 2-5 then to 5-10, and we play a little video poker too afterwards, which is always fun, which means I got a bunch of comps when I can bring my wife there for Christmas time. The setup at the Encore is weird because the 5-10 game's like a 1,500 cap and the 2-5's a 1,000 cap, and I ended up moving from the 2-5 game with a $3,200 stack to cap down to 1,500. The game was actually pretty decent, but then you played the next day and it wasn't really that good, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
2-5
that's
game.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That day, the first day we were both there, it was great. And then the next day it was not.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into it here. So you got a hand for us, Tony?
I do.
All right.
This is at Win Las Vegas.
Ah, okay. So the win in Las Vegas, which is actually at the Encore, right? Is that right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. So
Two
what's the game size here?
2-5,
All
and
right. So
it's nine-handed.
this is a 1,500 cap or something?
1,500 cap. That's right.
Okay. So 1,500 cap, nine-handed. Okay. Yep.
All right. There are two main villains in this hand. The button has, excuse me. Yes, the button has 1,500
Okay.
effective, and the big blind has 750.
All right. So big blind has 715. You cover.
I cover them both.
Okay. Hero
Okay.
covers. Okay.
Okay, so I'm in the cutoff, and
Okay.
I open to $20 with the 10 of clubs and the 7 of clubs.
So hero opens 10 of clubs, 7 of clubs in the cutoff. Probably the bare bottom, right, of your opening range here. I take it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I would say so. It's a fun hand to play late. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily open it any earlier, but cutoff or button.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay, so you open 10, 7 of clubs. Okay.
Yeah, the button calls.
Okay.
The button plays about 9 out of 10 hands,
Okay.
so
Good
not too
info.
surprising.
Yep,
Yeah.
good info.
The big blind is backpack headphones rag. He also called.
All right, so big blind calls, just two blinds, and we go to the flop here. Standard open to 20, so it's like probably 55 after the rake, right? Something like that. Okay.
Yep. The flop is 6 of diamonds, 7 of spades, 10 of spades.
So 10 of spades, 7 of spades, 6 of diamonds, and you flop top two.
Right.
Okay.
That's right. And the big blind donks out $20.
Ah, donk lead. Donk leads for 20. Okay.
I raise to 100.
Hero raises to 100. Okay.
The button cold calls my raise,
Wow. Okay.
and the big blind calls.
So interesting street here. So big blind donks for 20. Hero with top two raises to 5x, which is basically about pot. You get a cold call here from this wide V-pipping button, who you said is playing like 90% of hands, and the big blind calls. I have a couple questions for you, Tony. Number one, would you raise an overpair here too versus a donk lead?
I think so, particularly because the donk size is 1/3. It'd be different if he was donking out pot or something closer to that. I think
Mm-hmm.
smaller donks are typically either top pair weak kicker or a draw. So I would probably raise there.
Right. So because it's kind of interesting, right? Because you block some of the top pair, you block some of the two pair. I tend to agree with you that this is usually going to be some sort of flush draw. I mean, I guess it could be pair plus straight draw. I guess you don't really know that much about the button. Sounds to me like he might just call with like any 10, or is he that wide, Jack 8 suited,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, I still think you have the best hand, but I would try. I mean, definitely things can change here quite a bit.
Hmm.
All right, so so we put in, so it's like 355 to the turn, right?
That's right.
Okay.
The turn is the Jack of Hearts.
All right. So the Jack of Hearts here on the turn. Now, what does that change? It doesn't change a whole lot besides the fact. I mean, obviously 8-9 is still a straight. I mean, the only thing it changes is that you lose to some jacks up here, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
When the card came out, I thought it probably wasn't great, but isn't terrible either. And it was just kind of one of those cards. I was like, well, all right.
Yeah, I mean, you could. I mean, the logical hand that you'd be behind to would be like a, Jack 10 here, something like that. Okay. Now, what does
Mhm.
the big blind do?
So the big blind overbet jams all in
Wow.
for 630-ish into 355.
Wow. So he moves all in for 630. You've got this guy behind you.
Right.
I mean, I can't. Well, I mean, especially with the guy being so wide behind you, you kind of. It's not like a normal player. So, I mean, obviously, heads up, he would call, right, without a question,
Right.
right?
That's right. So while I'm getting I asked for count, and while we're getting a count, the button is cutting out calling chips to the dollar.
Okay. So you think that he's really going to call here?
Yes.
I mean, what do you think the big blind has here?
Well, I mean, it's so strong, right? I mean, the big blind calling and then overbet shoving into two people didn't feel great at all. Um, you know, uh,
And now too, the other thing too is that it's like I don't even know if you have the option to call here because if you call the pot's like 15, you would have already put in like half your stack, and then if the other guy calls behind, I mean, it seems like you pretty much kind of have to deny equity here because I mean you can't call and then fold. I don't think. I mean, it just seems kind of nuts. I think the big blind could have like some Jack X of spades here types of
mhm.
holdings. I mean, that's kind of what makes sense. It just seems a little bit odd to donk Jack 10 and then call and then donk the turn. I mean, I guess it's possible, but wow, this is a really, really sticky spot here because you're getting about 1.5 to 1. You got to deal with the guy behind you, and there's so many sort of nut changing cards. But the fact that this guy behind you is so wide, if your equity here against like Jack X of spades with one card to come probably isn't even that high. I mean, it might be like 65%, something like that. I bet you it
Mhm.
has a boatload of equity. And then you've got this guy behind you here too, who I guess could be slow playing something. I might fold here, man. It's really, really close.
Well, and the question I had was, if would would uh, would a raise to build a side pot, like if I was convinced that the button was drawing, would a raise be an overplay here or not?
No, I think I mean, if I'm doing the math right, I think it's kind of like a razor full. I mean, so the pot's like almost 1,000. If you
Mhm.
call, it'll be like 1,600. You only have like 800 left in your stack, right?
Right.
So the guy behind you is gonna be getting some sort of crazy price, and then what are you gonna do on rivers? Like you only, I mean, it
Yeah.
just seems kind of. I mean, I think that it's really kind of an awkward stack, but I think probably if you want to go with it, you would jam. I think you would. I think you'd want to jam, but it's very, very close. I don't really see the case for calling here with these stack sizes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really was just much more concerned about the big blind. I mean, just I don't know. It's just everything. All of his actions seem pretty strong. I
Hmm.
don't see too many regs trying to blast two people off of their hands,
Yeah,
and he's got to know I've got something.
yeah. It's just if you disregard the guy behind you, I could go either way with it because you obviously have the equity against Jack X of spades here, right? And then you might get extra money in if the guy's putting it in bad behind you. I wouldn't lose sleep over it. I think it's very close. Usually I don't have trouble giving my opinion on a spot, but I think I can kind of go either way with it.
Okay.
Yeah. What did you end up
well,
doing?
well, I ended up folding.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
the button snap called, and
Okay.
then as he's calling, he leans over to me and says, "If you would have called, I would have folded," which of course is a
Oh,
great
that's not
thing.
good.
Yeah, it's great to hear that.
Yeah.
So The river was the deuce of hearts. The
Okay.
big blind says that he missed, and the button shows Jack 8 offsuit.
Oh God.
So the button cold called my flop raise with a gut shot and turned top pair.
So probably, I mean, really, what the big blind should have here would be like queen nine of spades, king queen of spades, queen eight of spades, some sort of massive, massive combo draw,
Yeah.
right? Some sort of massive combo draw, and then you get this guy, this idiot behind here. Yeah, that's the other thing too. You know, you wonder with this guy. I mean, it was kind of like your read of he was sort of going to call, but if he wasn't behind you, you would have called, right?
Yes. Yeah. No doubt about it.
So you kind of go back and forth with like normally against a normal player, when you think someone's going to call behind you after this action, then you just want to get out right away, right? But if you're dealing with somebody who's so bad, it kind of mucks things up a little bit, right? With pot odds and what they're
Yep.
doing behind you.
Absolutely. It's just, it's a shit spot being stuck in the middle,
Yeah.
in a situation like that.
Josh Shepard says that's the oldest trick in the book, cutting out calling raising chips to make you fold. Well,
Well, I had some history with the player, at least enough to know that, he's not angling me by any stretch. I do think he was going to call, and he did obviously call, but um, I don't think he was trying to induce a fold. I think he was
right.
just ready to go and figured
Did,
the guy was full of shit or
did you have to
drawn or
walk
something.
that one off?
I did. I played for another 30 minutes, and my head was such a mess. I just got up and left.
By the way, so I asked everyone over on on Discord this morning. I wanted to make a glossary of different terms that were invented by Crush Live Poker, so we can sort of get a reference over in Discord. And people gave me some great ones, but walk that one off. There's one right that I haven't seen. And I'm definitely going to keep that one for CLP. Walk that one off, along with Fifth Street Chicken, variable turn sizing, attacking limp pots, combo bet, delayed double barrel, chip spiking, etc., etc. Thank you very much for the call, Tony. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bart. A pleasure. Talk
All
to you again
right.
soon.
Thanks for calling in. It's my good buddy, Tony. All right. Let's move on here to our next caller. And this is Chad from Canada. Hello, Chad. You're up next.
Hey, Bart. Can you hear me okay?
I can. And I have to say, if people listen to the CLP podcast, I actually gave a shout out to Chad V from Calgary, who has taken advantage of emailing me a spot pretty much every week. And the issue was that when I was trying to do this 6 months ago, it became somewhat overwhelming. And because Chad did it every single week, he sort of got the bad end of it because he wouldn't get the highest priority from me because he had gotten so many responses. And I'm almost actually caught up, although I did change it to once every other week. But I always constantly think of you, Chad, when I'm doing these responses.
Well, I really appreciate the feedback on the hands, Bart. Sorry that
No
I
worries. No,
spammed
not
your
at
email
all.
too much.
Not at all. So you got a hand for us now?
Yeah, I sure do. So,
Okay.
actually, I was a 2-5 game at Casino Regina, which is not too far from Calgary, but it's in Saskatchewan.
Yes, Casino Regina. The other place I know in Saskatchewan, of course, is Saskatoon.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Two big
that's
cities.
that's kind of like cowboy country over there in Canada, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Route here. Yeah.
2-5, right? 2-5.
Yeah, 2-5. We don't normally have sort of a consistent 2-5 at Casino Regina, but there was a big tournament underway. And so we had a bunch of out-of-town players in for the week.
Okay, and just like that Reddit thread, I'll say that I've been to the Deerfoot in Calgary. I did the Canadian Open Poker Championship 1 year, so I've played in Vancouver, but that's about as close as I've been to Regina, besides a transcontinental Canadian cross-country trip I took when I was 9 years old. All right, so this is a 1K cap game?
Yeah, 1K cap.
Right.
Most players had sort of around that amount.
Okay.
1,050 effective with the main villain.
Okay, 1,050 effective.
And it was 9-handed.
Okay.
So we can jump into it here. So
Sure.
I was under the gun, and I raised to $20 with Queen of Hearts, Queen of Diamonds.
So here under the gun to 20 with queen of hearts, queen of diamonds. Okay.
And that was pretty standard. I just got to the table maybe 20 minutes prior, but that sort of seemed to be a standard open, 15 or 20.
Yep. Okay.
So then the hijack called,
Mm-hmm.
and the button 3-bet to $85.
So button 3-bets to $85 here.
And so here's the first decision point, I guess. I was trying to figure out, should I call here? Should I 4-bet? Or should I shove? And the stack sizes are a bit awkward because I was out of position.
Uh-huh.
So I was thinking, if I 4-bet, it'd have to be something like 340, which is sort of borderline breaking the pre-flop threshold. And I wondered if shoving might be a bit of an overplay, so I ended up just calling.
Yeah, this one's really close, right? Because when we talk about the pre-flop threshold, and I think I've said in some of my material a little bit sort of on the deeper end of where we should be, because the pre-flop threshold, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get the live stream thing, like, here we go, in order here. It kind of looks weird on my screen. Pre-flop threshold would say that when you're breaking basically an amount where you are always going to call off. Now, I've said that that's like 33%, 35%. I actually think that's a little bit high. It's more like 28 to 30%. You're really trying to find the amount where there is at least there is some fold equity when your opponent can go back over the top. Like the theory goes, if you were to 4-bet here, if your opponent knows you're always going to call off, it's better to just shove. But if you can get in less than 30% of your stack, that means that when the pot odds come back to you, you're going to be getting like less than 2.2 to 1, and you can find a fold. So one of the small stakes exploits on CLP, of course, is that you can break that threshold with big hands like aces and kings because people don't even know. Like sometimes you can put it in half your stack because people aren't even really paying attention. Anyways, this one's kind of awkward because you've got obviously you're incentivized to 4-bet here pre because you've got this field caller in there, and you probably could go to like 325 to 340 to get the guy out of there. I mean, that's what I mean. 85. Well, I mean, even if you just do a straight 3x, it's really only 250. So I think you have enough stack depth. I mean, you don't have to go 4x here from out of position. You could go to 300 here, I think, rather easily. The question then becomes, are you going to fold? I don't know how familiar you are with the button. Like, is this a 4-bet fold for value? So it gets a little bit in between. We sometimes think about this with like jacks or something like that.
Yeah, the button was completely unknown to me. He was from out of town, and I hadn't played any hands with him or really even seen him. He sort of looked competent, I guess, but how much can you tell from 10 minutes of looking at a guy? So
does that bring the hijack in too?
No. So I called and the hijack folded.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yep.
Oh,
And
that's
so the
good.
button, 191. So that would be your preferred approach then, Bart, is just to kind of do it sort of around that.
I mean, I
dollar
think you
amount
do have enough
suggested.
stack depth to 4-bet here. I
Okay.
think I definitely, I mean, like, as people are saying in the live chat, like you can easily make this 250 to 275. I think I probably would have done that. I don't know how familiar you said you weren't familiar with the button here.
Not at all. Yeah, I didn't know who he was.
I mean, if I'm gonna 4-bet here to like 270 and he shoves, I probably want to get prepped to fold. So if I don't know what to do, I probably will call. I mean, it's not a disaster when you play it, 3-handed. It's not like it's 5-handed or something like that. But okay, so we're 190 to the flop here.
Yeah. So then the flop comes out monotone. So it's 10 of spades, 7 of spades, 2 of spades.
Okay, and you've got red queens.
That's right.
Okay. Yep.
So I checked to the button because he was the 3-better.
Yep.
And he went ahead and checked back.
Okay, so button checks behind.
Yeah.
It's interesting here. If the button ever checks behind some overpairs for a little bit of pot control, because you would think, most of the hands that are 3-bet here, I would say mostly. Now he could be throwing in a squeeze, but most of the unpaired hands that are 3-bet consist of what, Chad? What do you think? What's the main hand that's unpaired?
Well, ace king.
Ace king, right? And you would think that ace king here with a spade would do some betting. Now, ace king, maybe king of spades checks behind. It's also possible that he could have just whiffed with a red ace king, and he's just choosing, not to c-bet. On a monotone board, he can still probably do a lot of small betting and sort of just fold your off, a fair amount of equity. I'm not super familiar right off the top of my head how often a unpaired non-spade sort of on a monotone board would be bet in this configuration, but you can probably always go for small sizing. Heads up, it probably can't be that bad, but I'm just thinking out loud. So it goes check check. Okay.
Yep, yep.
Yep.
So then the turn comes along. It's a total blank. It's the three of hearts.
Okay.
So I checked again, basically sort of for pot control, I guess.
Interesting. Okay.
Just because I didn't want to get raised and it's just being sort of cautious. And then the button bet 200, which is full pot size bet.
Wow. So he checks back and now he bets 200.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting how I would play this one from up front, because normally at this level, I'm not seeing a whole lot of people check back that many overpairs here for pot control in a 3-bet pot. It would seem to me that I would have the best hand here a lot of time, I feel like, when it goes check check, even with the red overpair, and I might want to do some protection / value betting, and I might just come out and bet 60 to 75 here from up front. I feel like I would do that a lot. Now, I don't think that checking is necessarily terrible, but that's just sort of my thought. Now, it's interesting that he responded here with 200. I mean, I think you have to call, but it's really, really strange.
Yeah, it is strange, and kind of what was going through my head. I don't play a lot of 2-5, but a lot of the people I play with at 1-2, they'll quite often, if they had a straight on the flop or
A
a
flush.
flush, they would try and trap, right? So I was feeling a bit nervous.
Yeah, but you can't be scared of monsters under the bed, right? Because
No,
how many flushes is he going to flop? It's going to be mostly high pairs, right? Or
right.
unpaired ace can't. You know what I mean? So, and
Yeah,
it's just kind of, it's kind of weird, but yeah, it's, if he has got ace king with the king of spades and he checks back, I mean, the only thing that's concerning to me is that a lot of times that hand will continue to check through. If I checked back ace king with the king of spades, I probably would continue to check through on turn, but I mean, I think you obviously have to call, but it is
Yeah,
bizarre.
I knew it was too strong to fold for sure. Because I mean, he would do that with any kind of good flush draw, like you said, with an ace of spades, or
Josh
even some.
Shepard says it sounds like red kings or red aces or red jacks to me. I mean, it's possible. Of course, red jacks needs more protection. So you called?
Yeah, I called.
Okay,
So
so now we're
it's five
at 590.
five. Yeah, 590.
Okay,
I've got about 765 behind. I was the effective stack.
okay.
And then the river was pretty interesting. So it was the queen of clubs, which gives me a set.
So it's the queen of clubs. Wow, that is so you make a hidden set here.
Yes, yeah.
So the question really becomes, logically, and I've said this before many times in the past, is that if you play your hand, in theory, if you're playing your hand as a bluff catcher, then sometimes when you run into a strong hand, you're still supposed to play it as a bluff catcher. But my question to you and to everybody else there in the live chat, though, is that is Chad necessarily always playing it as a bluff catcher? And does this river warrant some leads because of the fact that red aces and red kings might check it back? Now, you can sometimes get the best of both worlds when you're up against a good player that might bluff and also value own themselves, meaning that they will value bet a hand so that you don't lose the value here. My
Right.
take here is that I don't think he has a flop flush all that much given the line. If he flopped, for example, the nut flush, right, which is probably the good chunk of flushes that can comprise here from a 3-bet, I don't know if he goes 200 on turn. I mean, this is talking about like a check back on flop and then pot turn. It kind of seems like a protection type of bet here. So
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I want to take the lead, talking about taking the lead away sometimes. And people can say, "Oh, that's unbalanced. That's unbalanced. How do you lead river there?" Well, the reason why is, as if you say like as an exploit, is because hands will call that are otherwise going to check back here.
Right. Yeah, and in retrospect, so at the time I was like, well, I'm either way behind or way ahead, and I was nervous about getting sort of shoved on. But in retrospect, I was thinking, maybe I should have made a small value bet on the river, like just something small, to a couple hundred, and
Now,
then
tomato.
raises or shoves I can fold. But
Well, that would be, boy, I don't know if man bet. I mean, that's some of the hands that we've had with stiff ace of spades and stuff is great. I don't, man, I don't know if you can bet fold. Now, Tomato Soup in the live chat says, give him a chance to bluff ace king with spade, bro. And I mean, I suppose that might have some credence if the opponent thinks that Chad is holding on with some sort of pair like eights or nines where the queen is, kind of a scare card. I don't know how you'd be surprised how underbluffed ace king is in these types of spots. And the other thing too is that I still think that a lot of red aces, red kings, and maybe red jacks check behind where otherwise you might be able to get a call. I might go like what's 40%, like 240, 220 to 240, something like that here at the end. What did you do?
yeah, so I ended up checking, and check, evaluate,
Uh huh.
and thought he might take a stab at it, but he ended up checking behind.
And then did you ever find out what he had?
Yeah, I did. So when he checked back, I flipped over my queens, and he flipped over king of spades, king of diamonds.
Oh man, see that's
Yeah,
okay. So he checked back a black. He's checked back kings with a king of spades here too, which sometimes can be represented. I mean, that can sometimes be represented as well. I'm trying to put myself in his spot here. Like, that's a pretty tight, right? That's kind of a pretty tight check back, but it just doesn't surprise me that these guys will check that back as opposed
right.
to
And
like
the,
a
the
small bet, you know?
and the big turn bet was surprising to me too, because what's he really afraid of? To bet that big when he's got the king of spades. Like you would think he would bet maybe small on the flop and then small on.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of want to. I mean, one of the things that for whatever reason, maybe it's human nature, that really has not changed, or some of these betting patterns at the recreational level. And I think that's really my bread and butter and sort of figuring it out. It just, you know, people are at different stages. They fall into the same types of betting patterns. I don't know if it's human nature, and it would be shocking to me if this was a flop flush because of the check back and then pot. If you had told me he checked it back and then he bet like 1/3 and he was trying to rope you in, that would be more indicative. So
Right.
that's why I take the lead away here, just because you're putting it all together with the bet sizing. But it's an interesting one, Chad. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for the feedback.
All right, Chad. Thank you very much for the call. And we're going to have two more callers here. You guys are going to just have to wait for me because this thing is going. If the Word document is a little bit funky, like I can't complain because I was really just sort of crossing my fingers here, sort of as a test. I'm talking about on the live stream. It's acting a little bit funky, but hope you guys are watching some World Cup stuff here today. I was watching the Japanese game a little bit and into penalties, and boy, I don't even know. South Korea just got annihilated at the end. I'm just personally just rooting against England. No offense to British CLP subscribers. It's just the Euros that give me shit in the YouTube chat and on Twitter. All right, let's go to our next caller here, and this is gonna be Megan. Hello, Megan. You're up next.
Hey Bart, how's it going?
Pretty good. Got a hand for us, Megan?
Yeah, this is a 1-3 hand, played up in Victoria, BC.
Oh, another
It was
Canadian.
480 effective.
Okay, so yes, and Megan, you've called into the show before, right?
Yeah, back in the summer sometime.
Yeah, 480 CAD, loony. All right, so 480 Canadian dollars, 1-3 in Vancouver. Okay.
Yeah, it was 10 of hearts, 10 of clubs. I'm in MP1.
All right, so here has 10 of hearts, 10 of clubs in MP1. Okay.
There was a button straddle on this hand of 6, and the
Okay.
small blind called, which yeah, he's loose aggressive. And hero raised to 30, and just the small blind called.
So you say that the small blind is loose aggressive and he blind called the button straddle.
Yeah, he was blind calling every button straddle. He can play loose aggressive when he's in the mood, and he was in the mood at this time for sure. So he's
So
super wide.
how often is this button straddle? Is this every hand or
No, it
common?
wasn't mandatory, but it was a couple times around.
All right. So button straddle, of course, the blinds act first. So small blind limps, hero goes to 30, 5x. I think that's perfectly fine. And small blind calls in your heads up.
Yeah, you got it.
All right. So pot's like 60 and change, probably something like that.
Yeah, about 60.
Okay.
And the flop came down 8 of hearts, 8 of clubs, 9 of diamonds.
8 of hearts, 8 of clubs, 9 of diamonds. By the way, would you like to say what card room this is at? I just had a
Not
question.
really.
Okay. No problem. Okay. There are quite a few card rooms, right, in the Vancouver area, right?
Yeah, I'm over on the island in Victoria,
In
but yeah.
Victoria. Nice. My wife actually asked me, what is the name of the island over there? She was like, is it Vancouver? And I was like, no, it's Victoria.
It's Vancouver Island, and
No, is it?
Victoria's the city.
Oh,
Yeah.
shit. I was wrong. Have you ever seen the show on one of my favorite shows, Taboo? You ever heard of that before?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, check that out on AMC. It's about British, American, and the East India Company politics and trying to gain possession of Vancouver Island during the War of 1812. Thomas Hardy.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. All right, so 9-8, one of my favorites. 9-8-8 rainbow. Okay, so you flop an overpair.
Yeah, and he checked, and I thought I'd bet for value and protection here. I think he would call pretty wide, so I just bet 20.
Okay, yeah, sure. Hero bets
And
20.
he called, and I think he can have like, I don't know, any 8, any 9, any underpair, any kind of straight draw, any kind of backdoor
Ace
flush
high.
draw here.
I mean, ace high.
Like
I mean, people get wrapped up with
totally.
2 overcards and ace
Ace
high, right?
maybe just any 2 overs, you
Yeah.
know?
Yep. For sure. So it's 100.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the turn came a deuce of diamonds. So there's 2 diamonds now.
Yep. So 9 of diamonds, 8 of clubs, 8 of hearts, and now the turn here is a deuce of diamonds.
Yeah, and he donks out 80 into 100.
So small blind donks for 80. Now remember, you started the hand with 480 effective, right?
Yeah.
You started the hand with 480 effective. So what do you think this could represent here in terms, like, what are you thinking here on the turn?
Yeah, so I thought there was a chance that he just picked up a diamond draw here. I thought there was a chance that he had an 8 and was trying to get a lot of value out of me. I thought about raising here, but I thought it might, like, to maybe 200 and leave like 230 behind into a pot of 500, but I just thought that was spewy, so I just called.
It's going to be hard to raise fold against a guy like that. That's for sure
Yeah.
here. I mean, it really comes down to like if he's going to check call with some sort of 9, or if you're going to get value from some backdoor diamonds here too. You don't have a diamond in your hand. I mean, when you call here, the pot's going to be 260 and you've got like 350 left. So believe me, I have played against some bad players. I mean, this kind of reminds me of like hands back in the day where I actually would like to bump it up here so I can get stacks in to go to 180. But if you raise, you know, you're pretty much pot committed here. And one of the things about your hand that's different than say like aces is that there's going to be a lot of rivers where you're just not going to be all that comfortable value betting. So the higher your pair here in these given situations, the more you can play your line of call, because you're just going to be able to comfortably value bet across a lot of rivers. Like here, if you call on the river as a king, the river is a queen, the river is a jack, we will sometimes scare ourselves. Then we're like, what are we going to get called by that's worse? It's another card that scares. It scares a 9. I gotta be honest with you, the more and more I think about it, the more and more I don't think he's playing a check call lead here with an 8. And I like your small sizing. I think people over defend when at the small stakes when people use small sizing, that he can have a shit ton of wide range. So then it really comes down to when you're in this spot, like I think you have the best hand here. And then what I'd be asking myself is, well, if I call here on the turn, it should look to him that I have something here, right? So if he's not going to bluff the river, then maybe I should just get my value now from a 9 and like go bump it up to like 175, do a little dink and dunk, That's another one here. Dink and Dunk
Mhm.
for CLP. Dink and Dunk, like something like that for the CLP glossary to like build the pot up here. But hero calls, okay. And now the
Yeah,
pot is 260.
I also thought there was a possibility he had like all the full houses, like possibly like 8-9, even like 8 deuce suited at this point. But I
Really?
guess
That
it's
he's
pretty
gonna just check call
strong
out and
lead.
lead here?
Potentially, I don't know. Yeah, maybe that's bad thinking, but it did cross my mind.
Yeah. Well, Mathemagical 55 says never raise. Why? I think I just, and Tomato Soup says yuck, nothing to do but call. Of course, they made these comments before I just said why I would raise. So, anyways, so the pot now is $260. I mean, I just think that you have the best hand here, just a ton, and I just would hate to see you lose value from a hand that would call off that backdoored into diamonds or 9x or something like that. So, what's the river here?
Yeah. So the river's the ace of spades.
Okay, so that's like one of these hands where if he checks to you, you're probably just check it back.
Just
Like,
gonna check back. Yep.
yeah,
Totally.
yeah.
So he thinks for maybe I don't know, 5 or 10 seconds and ships it for 350.
So small blind shoves for 350.
Yep.
So this is where I make a lot of. This is a polarizing, very, very polar spot at this level. And what I mean by that is that one of the things where you can make some harder calls at the small stakes is because people do not effectively depolarize themselves on the river. And what that means, of course, is that I would be very, very shocked if this guy, for example, had like ace 7 of diamonds, something like that,
Yeah.
right? Where he check called with ace high, he semi-bluff turn, you called, and now he's going to effectively value bet at the end. And an ace is like the nuts here. And what I mean is like the effective, and what I mean by that is that if I took ace 10 of diamonds, if I took ace 7 of diamonds here against Megan, if I check call lead turn and she calls, she's not probably doing a whole lot of calling with ace king, maybe sometimes, but I have an ace. I think it's more likely that she has some sort of showdown value like a pair. And when the ace comes, I've got the best hand here. Now, if people can't do the hand reading, I might not go all in, but I'm going to value bet when I run into an ace. But at this level, you just don't see that, and I would be shocked. So if you take out the fact that they could have, I'm trying to spell depolarized here as another term. If they take out the fact that they could have ace X of diamonds here, which I find very, very hard to believe, then this is really like the nuts, like an 8X type of hand or like some, crazy boat that you were talking about or a misdraw. I would have a very, very difficult time folding here. I would call here for the reasons that I just stated. Now, he could have run into ace 9. That's a good point, guys. That's true. He could have run into ace 9. Alex Claus says here's blocking jack 10. Then that blocks some of the jack 10s. Ace deuce, of course, would be counterfeit. I think I would call here.
Okay. Yeah, I counted up a bunch of full house combos. I wasn't sure if you would just open shove with trip eights, but I thought maybe. I agree with the like.
Well, he should
backdoor
open
flush
shove
draw
with trip. I mean,
ace.
if he was going to play a stop and go with 8X,
Sure.
why wouldn't he shove with trip 8s?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the fact that like he doesn't, maybe the ace scares you. I just find it hard to believe that he plays like a little stop and go with a boat like that. Like, say he flopped 8-9 and he was slow playing it, or he had
What about
8.
deuces?
Okay, deuces, but would he still though? Yes, deuces is definitely something that he could have, but would he just donk bet the turn after your small sizing when a lot of people in your spot with small sizing actually don't have overpairs?
Right. Yeah.
So what ended up happening?
So the bluffs I counted were like queen jack of diamonds, jack 10 of diamonds, 6-7 of diamonds, maybe stuff like that. I ended up folding. I tank folded.
Now, but is there ever and I've been told, and I don't mean this, I don't care either way. I'm not the PC police. Maybe I just don't know. I've been told that using the term spaz is bad. If it's offensive, I apologize. I've always used it in a poker term. I was going to say the I think that because you're small sizing on the flop, there might be a slight spaz factor or a slight just over
Right.
aggressive factor because of the fact that you use such small sizing, and where people will just show up with hands that they shouldn't have because of your small sizing. It's different if you went 2/3 on the flop. That's kind of the key point. Did you ever find out what he had?
Yeah, it showed 5-7 of diamonds.
Sorry about that. So small blind has 5-7 of diamonds. So he turns combo draw. I called the flop with the bottom end of a gutter, turn diamonds,
Yeah,
and that's that.
he knew the ace was a good.
Like I said, I mean, we'll definitely make this one into a video. I think it's really, really important to recognize that usually at the small stakes levels, people are not gonna find the shove here with the ace X as a rivered nut flush that should be effectively value bet. So when you take that out, and then you've got the stop and go, which I find a little bit strange because of your small sizing, and then you add all the other hands he shouldn't have because of your small sizing, where he might just float you. That's why I find the call. So
Yeah.
thank you, Megan,
All right,
longtime
thanks.
CLP subscriber. I appreciate it.
Yeah, cheers.
All right, let's move on here to, this was actually, so when people submit for hands, this is a kind of an, I mean, this is a, we've had some big hands on the show before. And usually now I'm trying to do 5 calls because I'm trying to do a thing in December where I'm actually trying to put up a video every single day. Just because I think it's good for well, I'll give you a little clue into YouTube revenue too. YouTube in December is by far the most profitable for AdSense revenue. And then January is the worst. Goes from like $10 per thousand down to like 6 in January. But it's nice to, and I have enough of these, but we have these big hands. And this particular episode is kind of actually a bunch of CLP callers where I think it's more relatable and more common to some of the stakes that people play in. So it's a nice little episode. And I think all these guys were actually CLP subscribers, but we do take a good chunk of non-subscriber calls too. So if you're not a website subscriber, please don't think that we don't read them. Mike G is he's just a workhorse. Like the guy's a legend. He reads through them all. He passes them all to me. At least 4 or 5 of the best ones for the week. And then I go through all the CLP ones too. So they are absolutely red. All right, let's go to our next caller here. This is Jimmy. Hello, Jimmy. Jimmy, you're up last. Jimmy L.
Hey, Bart, how we doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
All right.
Jump right in?
Yeah, jump right in,
absolutely.
Jimmy.
So this is out of Minneapolis, private game. There's no limit hold'em at our casinos here. We have a lot of limit, so we avoid those. This is from Thanksgiving night. A couple tables running. We were playing 1-3 hold'em and Omaha rounds, 1,100 effective. And Villain, who I think notable, is down 4K, and it's only like 11 o'clock. I think we started at about 7.
So I got a couple things to say about this, Jimmy.
Yep.
So this is what they would call in the old internet days the HA mix. I don't know why it's HA, but this is half Omaha and half Hold'em. And normally, in my experience, these games tend to degenerate down to only PLO when people get stuck in the end.
Oh, absolutely. It's we also play every round change is a bomb pot. So
what kind of bomb pot? Hold'em or
$10 double board.
PLO?
Double board Omaha, and then I've talked them in now to single board Big O. So we switch off and you call as the dealer.
Oh, that's great. Single board. I mean, if you've heard by the way, on Sunday of this week, the third man, if you're into double board PLO or you want to learn about the game, on Sunday of this week, which will be the 11th, I'll put up the video that I did with Charlie Wilmoth, who is, of course, contributor for Third Man Walking. We did a double board PLO podcast. I made graphics for it, and I'm going to put it up on Sunday. It's 2 hands. Of course, any type of split pot, bomb pot game is good. So single board Big O is great. That's a great.
Oh, Bart, it's great.
I think that's even better. I think that's even better than the double board games because it forces people to play hands and they've got no idea what to do. But just on the other thing that you said too, and I remember putting some Twitter, social media stuff out there. One of the best nights to play of the entire year is Thanksgiving night.
Absolutely.
I haven't played on Thanksgiving night in a while, way better than Friday, but I used to always, when I lived in LA and I didn't have family near me, I used to always play on Thanksgiving night. For whatever reason, that is one of the best nights. I should have tweeted that out too. I forgot this week. So, okay, so 1-3, half, 1100 effective, okay?
For sure. And
Yep.
so Villain, who again stuck big already, opens to 15. Her VPIP's pretty high. Player in the hijack calls, who's kind of a station.
I'm sorry, can you start over again? I was just,
Yep.
Sorry, go ahead.
Villain's in middle position. She opens to 15. There's no straddle on. There almost always is a straddle. I don't remember why in this particular hand there isn't a straddle, but she opens to 15. Her VPIP's very high.
Okay.
Player in between calls, kind of a station. So, and all these players generally, because I know most of them pretty well. This player, the Villain in this hand, I know well, but haven't played a ton with. I play a little higher, and she's one of the dealers usually. So I know, but don't play a ton with. So I'm in the cutoff ace, queen of clubs. Easy 3-bet here. I go 4x, really trying one. I think the Villain's calling range is, and then the middle person almost always folds to a 3-bet without something really good.
He almost always folds?
Yeah, if he calls in between, I play with him a ton, and I honestly sit on his left a ton and punish him way too much.
I was actually thinking about.
He's gonna hate me. But
I understand the reason. I was actually thinking about making it more in position and building the pot up more, because these guys usually, players at this level, especially if it's a half game, won't fold. But okay, so you go to
Correct.
60. Yeah.
No, I went to 75.
Oh, you went to 75.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I went 5x.
Okay.
Sorry, I think I did say 4. I went to 75.
Okay, so 75. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Folds around to the Villain, who thinks for 20, 30 seconds, calls, hijack, folds, and we are off to a turn.
Off to a flop.
Pot's 165, and the flop is queen of diamonds, 8 of diamonds, 2 of clubs.
Queen of diamonds, 8 of diamonds, 2 of clubs. So you've got ace, queen, your heads up, you 3-bet MP, call, 3-bet to 75, call, fold. I mean, this is great.
For sure. The dream is real right now, right? You're thinking
backdoor clubs too, right?
Perfect. Yep, exactly. Going to extract value. And of course, the story change, Villain just fires out 5 green chips for 125 into the pot.
So MP, well, this is an interesting one. We've got a lot of donk leads here. So MP donks into the 3-bet for 125 with 5 green chips. Interesting. Interesting.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say here is, again, even in a 3-bet pot, you start to think about what are the hands that get donked out into the 3-better. I mean, we don't usually see a whole lot of donking out into the 3-better and 3-bet pots, but it's usually the same types of ranges. And because you have a queen here, what I'm usually saying is that it's some sort of either top pairish, or I'm finding out where I'm at bet, or diamonds. You have a queen, so it's less likely that they have a queen. So I'd be very cognizant of diamonds. And going back to what I had asked the first caller too, is that, I mean, it sounds to me you're at this sizing, and I think most of us would probably just call here. I do wonder if there's any difference between having like ace queen here and like kings and aces and unblocking queen X.
Yeah, I think if I have kings or aces, depending if I have a diamond or not too in particular, I think I might put more money in the pot against this player. I felt like I was exactly where you were at. I was thinking this looks like diamonds, some worse queens, and maybe the occasional like small percentage of like sets of 8, just like tiny percentage. But that was it. I was either way. So
now, wait a minute, Jimmy, too. I will say, too, and again, I'll go back and forth with this, too, with the live chat here, because I was just about to say what this doesn't represent to me, if you're talking about the theme of this show and, like, noticing betting patterns, I would be absolutely shocked if you didn't have the best hand here. Like, is someone going to donk out with a set of 8s or a set of deuces here, or, God forbid, it doesn't sound like this, she has queen 8 suited in her range. So then the question then becomes is, do you have the best hand here? And can you just play for stacks right now? Just raise, get money in against the combo draw. The draw in itself is fairly transparent. Now, you could also make a case here where if you call, you're putting 250 in here on the flop, the pot's going to be 415 moving to the turn, and then you've got 900 left. So you could still get the money in across 2 streets, but that does have some merit here, I think, to raising.
Yeah, for sure. And I did think about that. I really thought, like, I guess being in position, I thought I can play this perfectly. I think I'm a pretty good hand reader. I felt
Sure.
like I could see what's happening, and kind of basically extract max value and get out of any situation. I didn't give, honestly, raising a ton of merit there because I really, with this player who's stuck, I wanted to keep all of her bluffs in for sure. That was I think, teetered me over the edge there. So I did just call the 125.
Well, let me ask you this question. Does she have any naked bluffs, though? Is she ever doing... I mean, here's the thing, too. Like, that when she takes such a large sizing and you call, if she... And I don't think this comprises of a large portion of her range, but if she has any I'm finding out where I'm at bets with, like, 9s, 10s, something like that, I just feel like your call freezes her anyways. There's going to be a check on the turn. She's just going to... do a lot of mucking anyway, so why not try to get the value from diamonds or a worse queen now? I think is
that makes sense.
The
worst queen in particular. I did think, honestly, like she might have an 8, and let's just keep her in. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. We're also, it is it's a 1-3 game, and I know everybody says it's played bigger, but it's still a 1-3 game. We are 300 big blinds.
Sure.
Or actually more. We're almost 400 big blinds effective. I don't know. That's really not my, I'm going to say, style to put 400 big blinds in against anyone.
Yeah, but we don't have to look at it
control.
like, I wouldn't get too scared about like the paper blind depth here versus just like looking at the range. And by the way, too, when you said, because I'm ready to play for stacks here and I'm just trying to get the money in. When you said 8x here too, I think that is the same sort of type of thing. You want to keep her in with 8x, but your call is gonna. I mean, here's the thing. She donked for 125. You're calling, like, you don't have a ton of ace king. I mean, I suppose you could have like ace king with the ace of diamonds, but okay, so now the turn comes off like a 3. Is she going to check call with 8x here? I mean, that would be the reason for calling as opposed to raising, but
I do think with this player, we could twist her up, but fair enough. I hear you. So, want to go to the turn?
Yeah, go to the turn. Yep.
The turn is blank, 5 of hearts.
Okay, big blank.
And then now she leads right back into me for 240.
So she's continuing to donk into you.
Continues to donk into me. And this is where I guess I started to get into the blender and ultimately get a little twisted up. So she leads into me, and I did
for 240, right?
240, yep, into the pot. And I thought about it for a while. I actually took more time than I usually do. And I really started to wonder if she was just setting a price here, or if maybe now with this sizing had more value than I was giving her credit for. But I was sort of having a hard time finding that value.
But Jimmy, what value though? What value?
Yeah, the value would be like a set of 8s. Our king queen with king queen was that I have.
If this mid-position lady playing half live HA on Thanksgiving is leading into me with a set of 8s and a 3-bet pot, she's going to get my money. She's going to get my money. I'm just doing some math here. So 240, if you call, this is how I do it on the table here too. I'd be like, okay, the pot's right around 900. I've already put in 125, 200. So I put in 440. So I've got like what, 650-ish left, and the pot would be like 900 if I call.
That's exactly right. Yep.
So you left. You probably have the option here then, because it's still 2/3 of a pot size bet left. Like you could call, and then if she checks here's the thing. If I call here and the river's a brick, like a non-diamond, and she checks, you have to move all in.
Oh, absolutely.
What I was going to say is that it may be like, once in a while you get like a dicey, like Broadway card or a diamond, but, and it's not even just that if a diamond comes, it's not that you don't have the best hand. It's just that the calling range now gets more compact when the diamonds come. Whereas like if the river is like, if you call and the river's a black 3, she's going to call with any queen as played. Like you're going to get the call from king queen, I think, with front door diamonds. So if you are deeper, this is where I like to take the betting lead away. Like if you're deeper, sometimes I even, as crazy as it sounds, because this hand is so extreme, because I always think you have the best hand, I will sometimes even click it up because I want to get the money now that will shape a larger bet on the river. So say you had like 1,500 behind, you could click it to like 550, 600. She calls, you get more money in there. It leads to another bet at the end. Here you sort of have the option of calling because it's 2/3, and it's because now if you click it up, I mean, I suppose you could go to like 500 and just sort of call off. I think it's actually pretty close. But I mean,
Yeah,
I
that's
still think
what
you've got the best hand here, though.
well, that's how I felt, and I thought that I could again continue to play Rivers really well, and that I would get her to put in a bunch of money with a hand as weak as like Queen 10. You know, if I called, I had it felt like she had a little bit of steam coming out of her, just from the general gameplay, and so I did, like I said, take here, but I had decided to call. I wanted to keep her honestly firing away because this bet in particular kind of threw me for a loop. I'm like, well, what are we doing other than setting a price on a flush? So,
well, and then we've got some really, as always, we've got some good comments here in the live chat that I want to bring up. Alex Kloss says, well, if she has a set, give her her money. We know that, but some people talking about, Alex Kloss says diamond draws aren't folding to a jam. This is the whole same concept, whether we want to click it up or jam. Here's the problem if we don't raise here. Here's the disaster. There's two disasters that can happen. Okay. Number one, diamond draws that would call off don't bluff the river. And now you're giving a reverse free card, right? You're losing that value. And then the other disaster I feel like is a queen that will play for stacks. You don't get stacks in because a diamond comes at the end and both of you get scared. Those are the two things.
The diamond's not paying off, definitely. I also will say, though, I felt like this, it's just funny because we're going to get to a river where this is where I got twisted up a little bit, where I almost think a different thing, where I was like, I could see her just ripping having a diamond draw and ripping for all non-diamonds trying to bluff me off. But
Tomato Soup says she could have Jack Deuce of diamonds because she's a donk in an HA game who led into the pre-flop razor in a 3-bet pot. You'd be surprised what people will show up with in these HA games for sure, right? I mean, they're playing any 4, so.
He's definitely right. I mean,
yeah.
I put her on any diamond draw here, so.
I think I would have put money in, Jimmy. I would have put, Jimmy, right? Yeah, I would have put some money in on the flop or on the turn. Okay, so $8.95 to the river.
And then to the river is the ace of diamonds.
Oh, no!
Exactly. And Villain thinks about it for about 3 seconds and rips in 655.
Oh, no.
Yep. And
I was saying at first, oh, no. I mean, I was in pain because I thought Villain checks, and I was like, oh, God, you lost against King Queen. You lost all the money that you could have got against King Queen, but now she shoves.
And I tank.
For how much is it?
It's 655 is what she has left here.
Wow. So wait a minute. So we got So we got a donk on the flop, a huge donk on the turn, and of course, again, if anyone's reasonable, most of the diamond draws that you would think that would defend a 3-bets pre-flop would consist of ace X of diamonds, but now it kind of screams out at me like, was she combo drawing? Is she sort of wide, like this guy says in this HA game, like a Jack 9 of diamonds, Jack 10 of diamonds, something like that? This one sucks for you.
Well, this one did suck, and it did suck. And I gave her credit when I did what hands does she show up in range here? I had her every diamond draw you could think of, from the really good ones, King Jack, King 10, to Jack Deuce or whatever. So I gave her all the diamonds, and then I just struggled to find bluffs.
Now, before you give a result too, I want to give some commentary for some of the people that are saying in the live chat. Some people are saying snap call it off. Now, I don't think it's a snap call off. I think it's much, much closer than some of these guys are saying, but I think some people would say, oh, it's a snap call. You made ace queen. I think the more important part of this is the fact that the diamond is an ace here, which is better for you than if a diamond was like the 3 or something. Well, you know what I'm saying? Because it would tend to say that there are less flushes here, but I got to tell you, this is sort of a game dynamics type of thing. I mean, it would be like 1555, 655 to call. So you're getting maybe 2.5 to 1. I mean, obviously there can be all kinds of things going on Thanksgiving. She might have had 7 glasses of wine and she loaded up on tryptophan, right? At night, but
Sure.
I don't know what kind of player she is, or I don't know what kind of player but I mean, the problem here is that we put her saying that we didn't think she had a set. We thought she was either donking a queen that was going to check or some sort of diamonds,
Correct. That was where I got really into it. And I play all live but it's hard when I'm in the tank. I just think about, really the situation of what hands, how a person should react, like a reasonable player. What should they be doing here? And I couldn't come up with any bluffs other than I kind of thought maybe king, queen, king with the king of diamonds, but that just seemed like we're giving her so much credit with this line. So,
Well, here's another
know.
thing too. So thinking player says if you're giving her every diamond draw, you have to give her some spaz bluffs and worse 2 pairs. But the only thing about that I would say thinking player in the live chat is that just because somebody has those hands pre-flop doesn't mean that they're going to take a wild line post. Most of these recreational players that play too wide will play too many hands, but they're not going to, it would take a real maniac to show up with air here. You know what I'm
Correct.
saying?
I just pulled the airball bluffs out. This person had a hand that they thought was good or was on the come the whole time. This isn't just random 4 or 5. This is something more than that. I disagree with that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Another hand, absolutely, this player can spaz off. But so I ended up, and I did think maybe there's a chop as I see it, but I ended up tank folding like a chump.
And did you get a reveal?
I did, of course, because it's Thanksgiving night. First, she flashes me the king of diamonds. Then she gets up and walks into the room, which has another game going on, and announces to the world that she just bluffed me. She had king of diamonds, king of clubs, and had me the whole way.
Does that make king of diamonds? That's an interesting one to lie about, though.
Well, I doubt the group, my friends, don't think she was lying because there's a dynamic where I do pretty well in the games and I've been playing a long time. So kind of David versus Goliath or whatever, some type of thing like that. She was pretty proud of herself. And so it does make some sense to me in that once I broke it down from her perspective is she was planning jamming the river. The ace came and she just jammed anyways.
Well, sometimes, as I wrote in the live chat here, these are some situations, as one of the guys in the live chat said, where sometimes you have to sort of expand your calling range, and it's not even a spaz factor, it's clicking buttons. Like when you take from afar, when you take a look at this, king with the king of diamonds should not bluff here at the end as played, right? Because if you, really, it's just like once in a million a guy folds ace queen. They're going to just put you specifically on ace queen, right? You've called across flop and turn. You have some diamonds in your hand, although it's probably it's slightly unlikely now that the ace comes and she has the king in her hand. So you'd have to be doing some suited Broadway like Jack 10, Jack 9 of diamonds. So it's not, or some sort of middish suited connectors. There aren't that many diamonds left, but it seems like king here on this run out is too in between to bluff. It just doesn't make a whole ton of sense. Now, if you were deeper somehow, it goes to check raise river theory, but this is way, way deeper. If she was from up front and you guys were deeper, king with a diamond, of course, the line is somewhat ridiculous, but could be one of these hands that might be taken for a check raise bluff. And the way that you structure a river check raise bluff, of course, is that you take a hand that has some showdown that you decide no longer has showdown when the person in position bets, and then you would choose to check raise bluff it, as opposed to a hand that had no showdown value where you checked and you lose when it goes check, check. You take something with some showdown value and then you turn it into a bluff. But coming up front and then just blasting away with king from up front just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
It doesn't. And the fact that she didn't 4-bet to me, that's where I went back to. I was like, I took that hand out. I thought, to me, that's where I got to the end, and why I folded was I thought she either has a flush or she has the only fold I could think of was king of diamonds, queen. And I just couldn't believe that she sees that ace and then just rips it in. She's a solid player, but that's a pretty complex play to do that quickly.
The more I think about this, I don't know if I buy that story.
That's fair.
I think you might have made a good fold here, Jimmy. The more I think, there's so many things that have to go on here. I forgot about that guy in between.
Yeah.
Calls the king and takes this line. I think it's way more likely that she had the king high flush. Whether that be king 9 of diamonds, king 10 of diamonds, king jack. I think you made a good fold, Jimmy.
Well, I hope you're right, Bart. I'm taking some heat with my buddies, but
okay. I think it makes more sense that she had it than king with the king of diamonds.
Agreed. Once you see the king of diamonds, there's the 3 combos you mentioned, and really, there's 2 bluffs, but again, it's really, that's quite the play if she pulled it off on me. So
yeah, thanks for the call, Jimmy. Appreciate it.
Right back at you, Bart. Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, nice clip of hands there. I think we can learn a lot from some of those hands. Those are some obviously we're all at different levels, right? But in terms of like low stakes, kind of instruction, kind of like some of these donk outs, right? I think one of the things you can take away from this, which of course is why you can play it this way, it is very rare to see somebody donk out with a very, very strong hand. So when people fall into these types of patterns and you hold over pairs or top pair, top kicker, and there's really no viable 2-pair combinations out there, especially in 3-bet pots, you can manipulate the pot, based upon what you want to do for value with position. Like I said, Jimmy didn't necessarily have to raise turn here, but man, that's kind of that's a wild one if that lady turned king into a bluff. But anyways, guys, like I said, if you ever want to get on the show, I'm looking for some first time callers, and we got some repeat. Actually, we had Chad, and I think that might have been Jimmy's first time here too. I know Megan's been on the show before. Tony might have been on the show way back. We're always looking for some first time callers, especially if you're CLP subscribers. Instructions on how to submit is in the video. By the way, T. Drupta, he is a common critic. I thought at first he was just a dick, but he's not. He's just a critic. TD Krupta. Why don't you submit a hand, TD Krupta? I don't think you've ever been on the call-in show. I don't know if he's still out there. But anyways, guys, that's going to wrap it up for us this week. And thanks for joining us live.